Hello, everybody. I am Haley Lynn Gray, and I'm a sales and marketing strategist, and I am here as your guide through the alchemy of successful online marketing. And this is Jinx, who has decided to climb up and say hi today. And today's guest is a longtime friend of mine, Danielle Miller, and she is the author of the popular book, Smarty Pants Branding, a practical, witty, and actionable guide to crafting a brand that gets recognized, remembered, and makes service-based entrepreneurs wildly profitable. She is the creator of the School of Branding, co-founder of her influential brand, and she believes everything starts with your brand and teaches big-hearted entrepreneurs how to captivate, connect, and convert their dream clients and become a beloved brand. Welcome, Danielle. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you, Haley. It's wonderful to sit with you for a little bit and talk about this whole branding thing.
This is really cool. You were, one of the people that I look at and I go, yeah, she really understands this whole branding thing, and it's not just a logo.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will tell you honestly that when I started out, oh my gosh, it's been 10 years now that I have been sort of in this online space. And I started out as a life coach. And that was the first thing I thought too, is I have to get a logo. I have to, figure out what my tagline is. I have to pick some colors and boom, I have a brand. But you know what, it ended up not translating into clients, not translating into credibility and impact. And so I knew that in order to be successful, I had to do some things differently. And I ended up taking a career certification course in coaching. I was moving from life coaching to career coaching, and came around this concept of personal brand. I was like, wow, that's really intriguing. And so I read everything I could about it. And it was just this light bulb that went off. And I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to help people with. That's where I think you can really make the most difference, is when you get clear on your brand, particularly in this space that we're in with service-based entrepreneurs, coaches and consultants and those who work in, a multi-level marketing business, but they are really the person that connects with people and sells the product and educates. And so that was really a sweet spot for me.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's really important. And so, what is the difference between like brand and branding?
Yeah. And most people don't realize that there is really even a difference. And it's part of the very popular misconception around having a brand or your branding. And I see people doing this all the time. Well, I'm rebranding, or, I'm going to rebrand my business. Mm-hmm. And what happens is they focus again on that fun, sexy piece, which is the branding, right? Who doesn't want to look at color palettes and fonts and imagery and get caught up in all of that fun stuff around having a brand, right? It's almost like a rite of passage for entrepreneurs that, yes, I've done my branding, I'm good to go. But what most fail to realize, and this is usually typically when clients come to me, is that they haven't taken the time to build a brand foundation. And that's really the inner elements of your brand that people don't necessarily see, things like developing a mission statement, understanding what your vision is, understanding how you want to position yourself in the market in your particular area of expertise, knowing what the core values are of your brand, knowing your brand voice, how you want to come across, the words that you use, your brand vibe, how you want to be perceived by other people out in the world. All of those core elements, I like to call it the cupcake. It's really the cupcake of your business. You build that, you bake that cake, you put the ingredients together, out comes this delicious, little mini morsel of yum, but it also needs something to help it stand out, right? To make it attractive. And that's where the branding comes in. That's where you get to focus on, things like a logo, if it's appropriate. It may not even be appropriate for you. I know many, many successful entrepreneurs who do not have a logo. So it's not something that's mandatory. A tagline, the color palette, the fonts, the typography, the imagery, those kinds of things. That's really the icing and sprinkles of the brand itself. That's what draws people to it. That's what makes people take a second look and want to dive in a little deeper. So you have to make sure that there's alignment between the brand and the branding. And it's something that I see so many people, not intentionally, because you don't know what you don't know, but it's an area where many entrepreneurs fall down.
Absolutely. So what about branding yourself versus your business?
Yeah, that's another question that comes up a lot. And I can give you so many examples of clients that I've worked with who, let's just say, for example, you're a life coach. Mm-hmm. And you get your life coaching certification and you're all excited to get started in this business that you can have an impact. And you think, okay, well, I need a business name. I need to name this business something. So you settle on Awesome Life Coaching. But that business name doesn't necessarily translate into the ideal clients that you love working with, creating your reputation, solidifying yourself as somebody who is a thought leader in your area of expertise. And the reason for that is because you haven't developed the personal brand. At the end of the day, we connect with people. And so most of the time for a service-based entrepreneur, you are the work. The work that is produced, the transformation that happens for clients comes from you, within what you know, what you're good at, and the journey that you take clients on. Mm-hmm. Now, true entrepreneurship, and Haley, you are the expert in this, typically they are looking to build businesses to sell at some point in time. They're looking to build something that they can divest themselves of, that they can sell for a profit, and maybe then go on to the next venture. Not quite the same for a service-based entrepreneur. Typically, all of that work comes from within you. So when you decide whether or not you want to brand yourself or a business, think about what your end goal is. Is your end goal to build a business that you'd like to sell at some point in the future? Is it that you want to teach maybe other people a system or formula or methodology that you can build a company with? Or is the work going to primarily come from you? Is it primarily going to come from what you have within yourself? And that's really how you know whether or not you're branding yourself or a business per se. That being said, you should always have a personal brand because people connect with people. It also allows for a lot of agility, flexibility, nimbleness in the building of a business, because once you brand yourself, you can add things under that. You can that can fall under the umbrella of who you are. And I think that's a better way to go, particularly for those of us who are in this multi-passionate space where we have other things that we want to typically pursue within the course of our careers.
Absolutely. And some excellent, points there about, understanding where you want to go with your business ultimately has a profound impact on where you start and where you decide to go.
Absolutely. And that's not to say many people don't know when they start out. That's totally fine. But again, if you're not sure, start out with your personal brand. Work on that first. Get that under your belt. Start building your brand credibility, equity, reputation, and then it's a lot easier to expand out from there.
Absolutely. Wonderful points. So you start talking about, audience. Mm-hmm. Who are you talking to? Who is your message?
Yeah. Again, it's another area, particularly I think in the service-based industries, because what those people do can help so many people, right? So if you're a life coach, you have a skill set that can help a lot of people. If you're a consultant in the health industry, you have expertise that can help a lot of people. However, when your message isn't clear as to who exactly you're talking to, you really can't help anybody, because I don't know what you do and how you could possibly help me. Mm-hmm. So it's important that one of the things that I always say is narrow your focus so you can expand your reach. And, it's very, very important to understand who exactly it is that you want to talk to, who you want to impact, who you can make the most transformation for. it's going to drive the direction of your brand and how you want to be perceived. Because if you're marketing to a young career woman in her 30s with no children who can spend 60 hours a week on her job and is looking for promotions and to work her way up the ladder, as opposed to a woman who is maybe in her 40s who has had this career for a really long time but wants to do something else with her life, completely different people. And it goes beyond the demographic piece. It goes into psychographics and understanding really what your tribe, your community value for themselves, what's important to them, what's the biggest challenge that they have. I don't like to have people focus so much really on the demographic piece as it is understanding the psyche of their people. What's the troubles that they have, what's the challenges that they're struggling with, what are the qualities. There's a huge difference between working with somebody who's a very type A thinker, linear, crosses the dots or crosses the T's and not dots the I's, as opposed to somebody who's very fun loving and spontaneous. What type of people do you like working with? Makes a big difference as well. So you really have to, and oftentimes that doesn't come about until you really start working with clients.
Absolutely. I know that, for me, it has definitely transformed over time. And I've, thought, hey, I really want to work with this group of people. And then you maybe attract some of those and you realize, oh, they're not what you think they are.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And that's going to happen. I think that's another really important piece with your brand is it will grow, it will evolve, it's dynamic, it's going to change. People that you originally thought you really wanted to work with 2 years ago, that may be completely different over time as you work with more people and get more experience and really understand that energetic exchange that happens between you doing your best work and those dream clients receiving it, and where that synergy is. And again, that only comes with doing the work. So.
Absolutely. So the question also is, what do you want to be known for?
Right. And again, in our space, people have many talents, many passions, many interests, things that they love doing. But, Martin Luther King didn't have many dreams. He had one dream. Mm-hmm. And that's what he focused on. Didn't mean he couldn't pursue other areas of interest, but he really focused on that dream and bringing that dream to life. And I think that's one thing that people forget is that if they focus on one thing that they want to be known for, it excludes everything else from their realm. And that's simply not true. But what happens is people want to shortcut the process. So people look up to the leaders in their industry and they automatically think, well, and I'll just use this, many people know Marie Forleo and they think, okay, well, I want to be Marie Forleo, forgetting that Marie started out as a life coach. She started out as a dating coach. She started out, building that brand equity and credibility to where she is now. That's what she was known for and developed more things out over time as a business coach, as a business mentor. But it didn't happen overnight. And so that's another piece of that when people are like, well, I don't know what I want to be known for. Actually, I think you do. It's just you won't commit. You don't want to commit. But it doesn't mean that you can't have other interests and you can't pursue other things. But for the work that you do, what is it that you want to be known for? What is it exactly that people know what to expect from you time and time again?
Very good. Yeah, I agree. You have to show up and do it consistently.
Yep, exactly. Business coaches, again, are known for lots of things: marketing, sales. They could be experts in Facebook ads. They could be experts in doing summits or webinars or whatever. But what is it that they want to be known for initially? And then once you have people in the door for that, sure, you can offer them other things. They know now about how good you are at this one thing. You're probably going to be really good at this other thing. Mm-hmm. But you really have to, in order to build a brand that stands out, you have to give some deep thought into what it is that you want to be known for.
Absolutely. So what is one of the biggest mistakes people make about branding?
I think probably I think probably the biggest one is what I explained earlier, not knowing the difference between brand and branding. And I also think that people don't spend enough time on what their message is. What is the most essential belief that they have about the work that they do? What do they believe is possible for people as a result of their work and their expertise? And I think that that is a highly, highly overlooked element in building a brand foundation. People don't focus on the message. Again, so I don't know what to hire you for. I don't know what your truth is, what your belief is about the work that you do, what you know without a doubt to be true for what can happen to people as a result of working with you. That's where the core message is. And that's really where you want to make sure that the client is the hero of the story. This is another area I think where many personal brands get confused, thinking of that the story of their brand is about them, but really it's about your clients being able to see themselves in your story. And, yes, it's your story, but you're really positioning it so that the client is sort of the young Luke Skywalker, and you are the mentor guiding them along the way, the Yoda.
The young Padawan.
Exactly. And I think that's, that's really where, when people struggle writing about pages and they struggle with figuring out what is the brand story, it's really telling people what your circumstances were, and that dream client being able to see themselves and see the potential and possibility within that story of what you can do for them. That's really where all that messaging and branding and positioning and story comes into play. And I think the other mistake that I see that happens often is that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes for a brand. People see the outward manifestation of that. The words, the imagery, the branding, the colors, that kind of thing. But when it's done well, there's a great deal of thought that goes into making sure that you are connecting with people, making sure that you are evoking the feelings and emotions that you want people to have around your brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point, is that it's, about the feelings and the emotions and connecting.
Yep.
At a very deep level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And even, using psychology of color to some degree, not just because green is your favorite color, but because it represents renewal, it represents growth, it represents hopefully, whatever those emotions and feelings are that you want people to have, color can enhance that for sure, and imagery as well. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that I see that happens a lot. People don't pay attention to the imagery that they're using. It's very scattered. They try the latest and greatest things. So I had a client who I was working with, very, not necessarily an introvert, but she was a quieter individual, more intense, softer spoken, and a colleague, a competitor who does very similar work to her, was more outgoing, bolder colors, and she had a caricature of herself. And this client said to me, "Well, do you think I need to have that done?" And I said, "What do you think?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know. It doesn't really feel like me." I'm like, "Then don't do it. You can't latch on to the latest, greatest thing if it doesn't fit your brand."
Right.
And that goes along with, trying to be something that you're not. There's a difference between being professional and being corporate and being, someone that evokes trust in people and knowing and liking them and all of that. And what happens many times is people want to emulate people they see having success. And there's a difference between modeling that and emulating that. So for somebody who would, again, I'll use Marie because people are pretty familiar with her. I'll hear, "Well, I want my brand to look like Marie Forleo's." Well, are you Marie Forleo? I don't think you are. but they'll see that level of success that she has and think, well, that's what I need in order to have that. And that persona never works. It never works when you try to be something you're not, or try to fit yourself into some sort of pigeonhole that doesn't really work for you. It just doesn't come, it falls flat. It's exhausting, and you just confuse people.
Amen. Yeah, I get the question a lot of times about, should I go start a Facebook group for my business because I have that big, huge Facebook group? It's the same kind of thing. Well, it depends. What are your goals in your business? What are you trying to do? What is your business exactly? It may make not a lick of sense for you to start a big, huge Facebook group just for the sake of starting a Facebook group.
Right, exactly. The tactics and techniques, the latest and greatest, well, should I develop an online course? Well, I don't know. Maybe. It depends on what your goals are for your work. It depends on who your clients are. What do you see as the need for them? Perhaps there are people who would benefit from an online self-study course as opposed to working with you directly. Maybe that's further down the line for them. But yeah, really knowing that and understanding the people that you really want to work with and impact it's huge. It's huge.
Absolutely. I agree. And I mean, there's no one size fits all, and every single business is kind of like, a fingerprint.
Yes. Like a brand, it has its own unique DNA to it. And you've got to figure out and bring out, again, there's so much about personal brands being, a persona, or you're trying to project yourself as something that you're not. It's not that at all. It's simply bringing out the best qualities and traits and characteristics that you want to present to the world. I mean, we're both dressed very nicely today. I'm typically in a hoodie and yoga pants. That will present a very different image of myself. It's not any less true to who I am, but for the work that I do, here's how I want to be perceived and here's how I want to be seen. So, it's intentional thought around that. Yes, it's strategic. Absolutely. Personal branding is strategy, but it doesn't mean it's inauthentic or fake.
So what about the whole notion that, okay, well, everybody out there is trying to be different, so how am I supposed to stand out from everybody else who's trying to be different?
I get that one a lot too, around the positioning piece. So, that's a big dilemma for people.
Right, of course.
And, you can go a long way to figuring that out when you really understand and embrace fully what it is that you do best. Around the work that you do. So many times for clients, the way you differentiate yourself is really understanding what your brand voice is, and making sure that comes across, the languaging that you use, the tone, the pitch, the rhythm. How is that coming across? Have you developed a brand style statement that really encapsulates your brand in 3 to 5 words so that you can articulate what your style is? Not everybody's going to gravitate towards somebody who's easygoing, laid back, and friendly and relaxed. Maybe they prefer somebody who's more intense and type A and who's a go-getter and a hustler. There are ways to differentiate yourself for sure. One of the key ways is to make sure that you've developed your methodology. Particularly as a service-based entrepreneur, everybody has a way of doing things. You may think that, my clients are so unique. Everyone's different. Everyone does it. I do a different thing for every client. I worked in special education for 15 years, and I know about individualization. You still have a process, a series of steps that you follow in order to meet your client where they are and to get them where they want to go. So you need to develop your methodology. That's one of the key ways to differentiate yourself, is having that signature way that you do your work. And really following through on that and looking at, okay, so when a client, again, we talked about this a little bit before, when a client comes to you, what's the intake process look like? Do you meet with them in person for 15 minutes? Is it a phone call? Is it just simply an email? Knowing that client experience is another way to differentiate yourself, and being very particular about it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's key.
And the end-to-end experience for clients is important. And it doesn't matter, what industry you're in, really, you know, if you own a restaurant, the end-to-end experience is every bit as important as if I'm developing a website, as if, you know, I'm putting together an entire sales plan or a marketing plan for the next, you know, 12 to 18 months. It has to look somewhat similar.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're writing copy. It doesn't matter if you are, design graphics. It doesn't matter. The idea that there is a set expectation, and again, this is another piece of making sure that you meet client expectations, but at each step of the way to the end result, you have specific criteria that is met along the way, and that doesn't change. And that's what gives you your raving fans. That's what gives you your brand ambassadors who say, oh my gosh, you have to work with so and so, she's awesome. And it's because they have a structure around what they do.
Absolutely. And the more you can define that structure and that follow-up process, you know, as much of a pain in the butt as it is, from A to Z to follow up after the sale and, you know, getting testimonials is critical.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Testimonials are a huge part for personal brands. I mean, that goes a long way to solidifying your credibility, your reputation. Do you do what you say you're going to be? I'll tell you what, you want to differentiate yourself, follow through. Because I guarantee you.
Just a little bit, just most of the time.
Just 90% of the time, because 99% of the people out there are not doing that. Right. So if you just follow through, if you just say, you know, keep your brand promise, do what you say you're going to do,
right,
you'll differentiate yourself. I promise.
Absolutely. It's amazing how that happens.
It is absolutely. And it's amazing how that will build your brand reputation very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
If somebody was looking to find you online, whereabouts would they go about finding you?
I am at daniellemmiller.com. And that is also all of my social media handles as well is Danielle M. Miller. So you can find me on Pinterest at Danielle M. Miller, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all of the social media platforms. I'm at Danielle M. Miller. Again, consistency is, as you have, I know you've talked about before, so important with a brand. You know, that maintaining that consistency is not necessarily sexy, but it is, because that's how you get known.
Absolutely. And you have a gift for our audience, correct?
I do. I wanted to do something fun, but very valuable and practical as well. So in the School of Branding, I have an exercise that clients, and I do with private clients, and they love it. And it's called a 5 Senses Brand Inventory. And what you're going to do, because it's so hard many times for people to articulate what their brand vibe is, like how do you want to be perceived? I don't know. So this is going to help you work through that. And you can go to daniellemmiller.com/HLG gift to get that. And what that will do for you is it asks you lots of fun questions. You know, if your brand were a meal, what would that be? Because there's a big difference between a barbecue and a 4-course meal, right? You know, if your brand were a scent, what would it be? What combination of scents would it be? You know, if your brand were a city, what city would most represent your brand? So it's going to help you really understand your brand vibe, you know, and figure out words that will help you articulate that, and which will help with really capturing your brand voice and how you want to be perceived.
That's awesome.
So it's fun. It's a good one. You'll enjoy it.
I will. I'm looking forward to getting it. And it's also going to be at a link below. So, you know, grab your free gift. This is really cool.
Yep. Awesome.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. It has been my pleasure to chat with you about this. As you can see, I'm it's my jam.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is your jam. Let's do it. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Haley. Thank you for having me.